Welcome back to RFL. Again, another live look at the House of Representatives in their press room as we're awaiting Nancy Pelosi to give an update on the impeachment inquiry after meeting with her conference. We're going to continue to monitor that. But in the meantime, we want to take you to a brief conversation that we had with Tom Nichols, a professor at the U.S. Naval War College. We spoke earlier about all those dismal headlines we saw out of Syria over the weekend. Tom, I have so many questions about the wider impact of what's happening in Syria and the changes that it will lead to, but I got to begin with the Kurds and your reaction to seeing our allies attacked and slaughtered, some dragged from their cars, raped and murdered, and the Kurds forming an alliance with the Syrian government basically because we've abandoned them.
This is going to take a long time for the United States to recover from, if ever in our lifetimes. This is the betrayal of an ally. These are people who fought beside us. And we've left for no apparent reason. I mean, we can't even come up with a good strategic reason for why we did this. We did it because the president of Turkey called the president of the United States and asked for it and got it. So this is really a disaster. It's a humanitarian disaster, and it's a strategic disaster on every level.
Can you think of any other examples where the U.S. has so willingly abandoned an ally, and again, as you said, seemingly in exchange for nothing, and you know, what this is going to do for our ability to generate future allies beyond Syria?
I can't think of a good example in modern history. Certainly not since the end of World War II. Even in Vietnam, when we had to pull out and we left people behind and we left populations behind, we tried to somehow, we had no choice really. We had to withdraw from Vietnam, and we did try to resettle some of our friends and allies here in the United States. This is an utterly inexplicable, unstrategic move. Again, the president is, I think, just making an impulsive decision because a strong man asked him to. And now people that had shed blood alongside our soldiers in the fight against ISIS are going to be destroyed, but, you know, again, for no obvious reason.
It's absolutely unbelievable, even the search for a reason. But as you mentioned, you know, there's been reporting that the president's aides specifically warned him that allowing Turkey to invade Syria would set off a chain reaction that neither he nor we could control. And as you have pointed out, he did it anyway. What does this tell you? What should it tell us about Donald Trump as commander-in-chief of our armed forces?
Well, the most important thing is there is no interagency or advising process left in the White House. The president doesn't like experts. He doesn't like to think he's not the smartest guy in the room. He doesn't want advice from people that are more experienced or have greater expertise than he does. And so there's simply no process left in the White House. Whatever our foreign policy is, whatever the president happens to be thinking at any given moment, or whatever he happens to have seen on television, or whatever favor that some authoritarian leader calls and asks him for. So I think that's one of the things that people should find deeply disturbing about this, because whether you agree or disagree with Donald Trump on any given day, you can't be sure that whatever he's thinking is what he'll be thinking 20 minutes later. The president has no policy. He has no process for making decisions. He doesn't listen to his own cabinet or his own advisors. And as a result, here we are with a war breaking out, people being slaughtered. The geopolitical balance in the Middle East is being altered as we speak, with the Russians moving into the area, all because Donald Trump didn't know what he was doing when he took a phone call.
And I want to get to the geopolitical impact in just a second, but last question specifically about Trump. He said he's doing this to try to prevent forever war, something that he said he campaigned on. Is there any validity to that argument that you can see based on the reports from the ground in Syria?
You know, the president says this because it was an effective slogan on the campaign trail, but he doesn't know what it means, because on the one hand, he talks about getting out of Syria and ending forever wars. We're not getting out of Syria. He just moved some troops from one part of Syria to another so that the slaughter of our allies could begin. At the same time that he did this, he sent 2,000 more people to Saudi Arabia. Why? Because the Saudi Arabians asked him to. Again, no strategic sense, no larger picture here. So this notion that the president is somehow ending forever wars, if anything, he's been presiding over the start of yet another senseless slaughter. And I would add, this is the same president who has struck Syria twice now with cruise missiles. Again, has increased the size of our commitment to Saudi Arabia and is just moving U.S. troops around within Syria at the request of, again, at the request of a strongman. That's the way foreign policy is done now. Someone calls the president, says they want something, the president ignores his advisors, and he just does it.
A conversation both sobering and frightening with Tom Nichols, professor of the U.S. Naval War College. Tom, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks.
Thank you.
And from Syria to the House of Representatives and impeachment, we continue to wait for Nancy Pelosi's update. We'll have that for you, hopefully, on the other side of the break.